People for Hodiye Black family, race first. This is Baba Imhotep, and we are here once again at the School of Urban Philosophy, where we are always straight up, straightforward, and to the point. I had an echo coming in, but I had to get rid of that. But yes, we are always straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point, where the information is used to develop, inspire, and raise the awareness of African Black people here in the United States of America and throughout the world. Some of my favorite people are signing on. Hotep, Black meaning African Hotep, as always is a pleasure, my brother, to have you to join me. Tonight's going to be very interesting tonight. We're going to go in a lot of places to dig deep, to delve into, the Black psyche. That's very important to just understand the Black psyche in relation to the times that we are living in as a people. We are living in crucial times. We're living in vital times. We're living in high-charged times. And because of that, our survival is really contingent upon how we approach these times and how we resolve the issues that impact us as a people. A bibi for Hodiye, Ilewa, a bibi for Hodiye, my brother. Race first, a bibi for Hodiye, brother Craig Samuels. It's always is a pleasure, my brother, to have you to join me, to just know you, to be able to just be in dialogue with you. It's a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I'm glad that you and I connected almost 3 years ago. And we've been solid ever since then. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you. So tonight, we're going to get it in tonight. And getting it in, by getting it in, I mean, we're going to raise the energy. We're going to raise the vibrations. We're going to delve into what's going on with us as a people, why it's going on with us, what can we do as a people, what must we do as a people, to address many of the ills that impact us as a people. Tonight, I'll be coming from several of my books. I just want to share some of these books with you, some of the things that I've written over the years. We're going to get into some of this content. The Revolutionary Vanguard, African Manhood in the 21st Century. We're going to get into the Nomo book that deals with some spiritualities and spirit living. And we're going to get into this urban philosophy tonight. We're going to delve into these pieces because the information is vital, the information is relevant, and the information is right on time for us as a people. One of the things I want to highlight before we get started, I want to talk about two things: sensationalism and romanticism. Sensationalism and romanticism. Sensationalism deals with looking for the overall emotional content in the feel good, the sensation. We're trying to be stimulated into being that particular moment. So the romanticism is to really look at a situation from a standpoint of fantasy. You romanticize it to the degree that you don't comprehend the realness of it, the reality of it. And that's to a great extent we're dealing with that. We have become largely sensational and romantic in our attempts to remedy our situations. We're always looking for the sensation, the stimulation, and we always are conceiving of the fantasy rather than the real. That's because we've been conditioned and orientated to seek avenues to escape from dealing with the reality that confronts us. We've been conditioned to do that. We're looking for avenues to escape from dealing with our true situation. And we have to confront the true situation as a people. And one of the things that you always going to hear me talk about is education, proper socialization, culture in the sense of Njia, meaning our way, standing on our center, the African worldview. We have to get back to that. We have to get back to that. We talk about healing as a people. I like to call it wholeness. But the way to wholeness is through your culture. Most of the illnesses that we are confronted with, the excessive neediness, the attention seeking, the distrust, the cynicism, a lot of that psychological stuff is connected to the disconnection of culture. Let me say that again. It's connected to our disconnection with our culture, because culture is the human humus. Culture is the human humus wherein a people roots themselves. And it's within the culture that the emotional, psychological, and spiritual nutrients, the social, psychological, and spiritual nutrients are retrieved from the culture. So the human being, which is a psychosocial electromagnetic spirit being, is largely dependent upon culture. We are cultural beings. So when you take us up out of a culture and displace us, you in turn sets in motion psychological derailment, spiritual displacement happens. The people become spiritually displaced. And within spiritual displacement becomes a loss of self. A loss of self. Because the self for the African is our core being. And our core being is spirit. Our core being is spirit. And when you can no longer identify with, tap into, or tune into your spirit, you're lost. And that, to a large degree, have happened to a lot of us as a people. So when we look at the fail or the disruption of the Black family, yes, we know that the Black family have been bombarded externally. But when we look at the Black family and we see the erosion that's happening, when we look at the Black man and the Black woman dynamic and we see the erosion or the conflicts that are occurring, that's linked to the cultural displacement. That's linked to the fact that the individuals are no longer tuned into their spirit. And because neither are tuned into spirit, they are disconnected as a natural unit. The Black man and the Black woman is a natural unit. But that unit can only manifest itself as a unit when the both parts or people or participants are tuned into spirit. Are tuned into spirit. When spirit is not there, we're lost. We're lost. And we're seeing it today. We're seeing that today. We're seeing us, parade ourselves in the media, all forms of media, whether it's the Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, whether it's television, whether it's books, you name it, all forms of media, we are parading ourselves in the lowest form, in the lowest capacity. We're committing sacrilege against ourselves because we no longer identify with the sacredness of being Black. We don't even see the sanctity in Black anymore. That sanctity is an outgrowth of our spirit. And because we no longer identify with that sanctity, we are committing self-sacrilege. Self-sacrilege, day in and day out. we are perpetuating it against ourselves individually, and then we are perpetuating it against one another. So that's the reason why we are infighting on almost every single level. There's an infight that's taking place. Why? Because we no longer see the divinity in the other Black person. We can't see the divine essence in the other Black person. Because you don't see that other Black person as being divine, and that other Black person is a reflection of you. So therefore, you don't see yourself as being divine. Because if you saw your own divinity, you would act divine. You wouldn't act anything less than what you are. You can always determine the perception that a person holds of him or herself by how he or she treats himself or herself. And I contend that all of what I just elaborated is directly connected to the cultural displacement of African people. The loss of cultural awareness have facilitated and precipitated Black insanity. Let me say that again. Black insanity is directly connected to cultural displacement. Dr. Kobe Bond called it cultural misorientation. And he was correct in his analysis. He was correct in his analysis. And we have to come to understand that. Oftentimes we don't understand it because we have been led to believe that our intellect is sufficient. And because we can intellectualize and utilize a form of logic, we cannot make the connection because we don't understand that culture is key and critical to psychological wellness and spiritedness. We don't understand that. Like, you are not going to be psychologically well and healthy. You are all over the place culturally. Cannot happen, Black man and Black woman. So we have to think about that. And that's why I'm always encouraging us to get back to the center, to do the studying necessary to understand who we are at our most sincerest level of what it means to be African and Black. I use African and Black interchangeably because I'm very clear about what it means and who we are. I use it very interchangeably. You can hear me say Black, you can hear me say African. I'm speaking about the same body of people when I do that. When I say human, I'm not talking about every talking, walking being on the planet Earth. No, I am not talking about every talking, walking being on the planet Earth. When I say human, I'm talking about the human being. And for me, the human being is the African being. Why do you say that, Bob Imhotep? Largely because the African being stood on the planet Earth before any other being popped up. So any concept or understanding of what it means to be human had to derive with us analyzing and observing ourselves. We most definitely couldn't have thought of anybody else and put them in the equation because no other walking, talking being was around when we were around, conceiving and defining, developing the frameworks of what it meant to be human. No other talking, walking being was there. So we can't allow other individuals to impose themselves into the concept or the definition of what it means to be human and then usurp it and then flip it around and try to convince you that the term and the word and the concept naturally encompass all talking, walking beings. Not true. Not as it relates to the African being. And these are the things we have to be very clear about, knowing history the correct way. Because that's also a part of, psychological health and wellness deals a lot with memory and location. Like, memory and location is key to that. Like, you think about a person when they have amnesia, a person can no longer remember who they are. They're not psychologically sound, right? Things are not okay with them. They don't even feel safe because they have no memory of anything that's taking place around them. They don't feel safe and comfortable. They're on guard. They're suspicious because they can't remember and they can't place themselves in time. And that's what we got to come to understand. So psychological health and wellness, to a great extent, relies upon location and memory. Our ability to locate ourselves within time and to remember who we were within time, right, is essential to the health and wellness of us at the psychological and spiritual level. And so we have to keep that in mind so we can get past some of these anxieties that's creating issues in our lives. We carry a lot of anxieties that's creating issues in our lives. We are hyper suspicious of one another. And we believe that's normal. That's not normal. Right? That's a creation. That type of conditioning have been manufactured within us. That hypersensitivity, the hyper suspiciousness, the overly distrustfulness, right? The pessimism. We are highly pessimistic when it comes to us. And you know what I'm saying? All those things those conditions are created within us, within our psyche, to impact our ability to operate as a unit. To operate as a unit. Those things are created within us. We have to go in and identify these things, these psycho-spiritual abnormalities that have been placed inside of us. And these things have to be ejected. They have to be ejected. We have to do some serious work on ourselves. And we have to get out the mindset of thinking that the excessive critiquing of one another is sufficient. Sitting back just critiquing. And most of the over critiques that we have stems from the anxieties and the pessimism that I'm talking about. We carry these things inside of us, and because we carry these things inside of us and we give them refuge, we give it refuge when we start allowing these things to operate at the intellectual level. When the anxiety intellectualizes itself, and we begin to propagate the intellectual side of it. So we begin to critique, overly critique, which is nothing but the anxieties running rampant within us. The anxiety is running rampant within us as a people. And we have to address those things. We have to speak to those things. But as always, my brothers and sisters, those of you who have tuned in, peace and blessings. Hotep, wonderful thing that you are here. Please like the video, share the video. If you have not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel. Let's get this content out. And as always, if you have a question, please put your question in the comments, and I will make it my business to provide you with an answer. I enjoy the dialogue. I enjoyed the back and forth. That's really what the School of Urban Philosophy is about. We are in session. This is our shule. We are in session. Black man and black woman. Each of us has an opportunity, and each of us has a responsibility to share. You can share, you can make your comment, you can provide your question, you can add your elaboration. It's all welcomed here. But let's be about the business of seriously raising consciousness, seriously raising Black consciousness. Let's really delve into what that looked like, because to a great extent, we still find ourselves as a people wrestling with issues and concerns that we should not be dealing with. We should have the consciousness that would allow us to resolve the issues and remedy the concerns. But because we do lack the consciousness, and that's clear, there is a crisis in Black consciousness within our community. There's a crisis, but that crisis can be resolved. We can raise consciousness. We just have to engage it. We have to engage the consciousness. We have to stir the consciousness, We have to provide the information. We have to call the consciousness into question so it can begin to do what it's designed to do, so it can begin to, to grow, to expand, to evolve, to deepen and develop. This is the work of those of us who have chosen to walk this particular path. This is our work, building consciousness. We got to work on that. We got to engage it. We got to be a part of the dialogue. We got to build the institutions where we can develop consciousness. Dr. Asa Hilliard always talked about the need to build spaces to study. He called them study groups. We need to build those spaces and not always assuming that people won't come. We have to build them. Build the space, establish the space. If you don't have a building, reserve space inside a library, public library, reserve space. Put your flyers out, let people know you're going to be there. And even if you're the only person there the first 3 sessions, show up, sit down and read your book, take your notes and write, right? But don't throw the towel in. Don't say we can't do this. This won't happen. They won't do this. That's not liberation talk. That's not freedom fighter talk. And we got to come to understand that oftentimes, we think the freedom fighting and the liberation work, requires us to talk about what we can and won't do. No. Brother Craig got a nice question. Let's look at the question. Why do you think we're so easily swayed by political rhetoric? Why do I believe that we are swayed? Almost every question that I believe that one will ask me, I believe I may provide the same answer because I believe it's all linked together. A person can be duped only to the degree that the person doesn't have the awareness or the consciousness to recognize that he or she is being duped. So we're easily swayed because we are, in terms of consciousness, is really low. Our political consciousness is low. Our social awareness is low. We are not engaged enough to have the political system, the political sophistication to identify who's who, what they're doing, and why they're doing it. So because we don't have that, we don't come equipped, we are easily swayed. But with that question and with that answer, we got to also think in terms of providing that solution. And like I was just saying early on, that solution is we got to build the spaces where we can begin to engage people to develop the consciousness. Whether those spaces are online or in physical, we got to build more spaces. The Europeans understood that very well. That's the reason why they put so money behind their institutions and even put money behind institutions that supposedly supposed to be for Black people. They put money behind those institutions so they can have a say over how those institutions are going to operate because they understand the importance of institutions. Institutions does a number of things, but what I want to highlight is this. Institutions is where a people's ideals, concepts, and aspirations are housed. They are housed within the institution, and the institution is the instrument wherein the ideas, concepts, and aspirations are passed on from one generation to another generation. The institutions serve their function. So if an oppressor or dominant people usurp another people's institution and gets in a position to regulate that institution, they in turn are able to do what? Insinuate their ideals, concepts, and aspirations into that institution. And having done so, then the institution, although owned, operated, and ran by Black people, will still serve the best interest of those who have usurped it, which is the dominated class, which in our situation would be white people. So therefore, the Black institution would still pass on to another Black generation white ideals, white concepts, and white aspirations. The institutions are indispensable to a people's development and to the perpetuation of a people's existence. We must have our own institutions, and we must know that our institutions are any safe space that we create that's designed to regulate how we are going to think, be, and operate, and we operationalize that space, that becomes an institution. We don't always need the brick and mortar. Granted, it's important to have it, but we don't always need it to start this work and to get this work done. Those institutions are very important, and it's through those institutions that we're going to build consciousness. We got to build consciousness. We cannot get around that. That's not something that we can get around. That's part of the preliminary work that must be done when you're trying to change the conditions of a people. We cannot say we're not going to do this, that, and other, because Black people are out there. Black people are out there waiting, searching. Good Black people, good Africans are out there. We have to find them. We have to make it our business to find them. Create the spaces, establish the promotional material, get it in circulation, and find these people so they know where to come and know what to be involved in, so we can begin to develop and grow and evolve and get a lot of work done. Economic and organizational institutional cooperation. Yes, in a lot of sense, yes. That's what it's about, though. That's the work. We have to build them. Economic institutions is just creating up. We can. It doesn't require for us to build anything elaborate. Anything extremely elaborate. We don't have to. If we're in a position to build it, then yes, we don't have to be effective in some degree. Harriet Tubman just got up and just left. And then she, she said, you know what? I'm going back down here and do some work. She came back and did some work. But at the same time, there's Henry Bibb. Henry Bibb, B-I-B-B. Go look him up. Those of you who may not know who he was and what he did, go look up Henry Bibb. Henry Bibb also, escaped several times. It made several attempts to come back. And he predates Harriet Tubman. In doing this. Josiah Henson. It's another one who escaped and came back. Just made a decision. I'm going back and get some people. So look them up. Like, our history is replete with Black men and Black women who just did what they knew they had to do. With whatever they had. Yep. Yes, Brother Craig. Henry Bibb. Yes, look him up. Look up Henry Bibb, and the next time you and I talk, tell me something about Henry Bibb. Anything. I guarantee you'll be impressed with the brother. I can guarantee you will be impressed with that brother. But these are just basic, these are just basic, simple Black men and Black women who understood what it meant to be a Black man and a Black woman. They understood they had an obligation to their people. They knew that if I got free, then because I got free, there's a strong possibility that I can get another person free. And they never reasoned that, they don't want to be free, even though they may have encountered some who wanted to stay on that plantation. But they had enough sense to know that just because some wanted to stay, they didn't represent the mentality of the majority. And that's what we're supposed to know as liberators, revolutionists, freedom fighters, Black nationalists, Pan-Africanists, whatever we choose to call ourselves. We should have enough African sense to know that African people have rejected enslavement in all of its various forms. From the very beginning, we never, as a body of people, was in agreement with this system. So we should never say that Black people don't want to hear this message, that Black people this, that, and other. We should never allow the minority that's being paraded in front of us in the media to become the representation of the majority. That's wrong. And that's false analysis. That's analyzing backwards. I like to call that oppressive logic. That's oppressive logic. When we, the enlightened, allow the minority of Negroes that's being paraded in the media to become the representation of the majority of us and then make a conclusion about the majority on the backwards behaviors of the minority, we can't do that. We cannot do that, and we must not do that. We must do our due diligence. We must patch our wounds up because, yes, we've been hurt by some people that look like us. Patch your wounds up because you're on the battlefield. You don't get up off the battlefield and get to complain. You patch your wounds up and you get back out there and you go back to war, man. It's simple as that. You don't join no revolutionary war and think you can quit at some point because it get hard, because some people push back, because some people betray and work with the enemy. And then you say, I want to quit. No, you don't do that. You don't have the luxury to do that. You're not allowed to do that. I forbid that. Stay on the battlefield. Continue to do the work. Stay tuned into your spirit and watch your spirit connect you with the revolutionary spirit of those individuals who also are still on the battlefield. We are out here. We are out here. Don't quit, don't give up, and don't lay down. We can get this thing done. We can get it done. We can, in fact, we are getting it done. We can't let no other people or person narrate our story for us. All we have to do is look to those who are doing the work. And you can see what the story is. The people that's doing the work have what? They have the receipts, man. The evidence is there. You can chart their history and you can see their consistency. And within their consistency, you can see their results. So you know who are doing the work. We are out here. Yes, Brother Craig, it's called oppressive logic. Reasoning backwards. Excuse me. Reasoning backwards becomes oppressive logic because it restrains and restricts the original thinking of the black man or the black woman. And by that restraint and that restriction on our thought, it causes us to reason backwards. And when we reason backwards, we always arrive at a false or inaccurate conclusion. And that's what's been happening to a lot of us. But let me share some passages from my book. First book I want to share a passage from is this urban philosophy. Thought and behavior. Whew. Let's see what I want to talk about. Something very important here I would like to share dealing with the Njia 2. Njia 2. Which is very important. So, Njia 2 is Kiswahili for our way. And I use the term Njia 2 for our way as a substitute for saying our culture or just saying culture. And I began to do that about 8-9 years ago because I realized that it was a significant misunderstanding and confusion surrounding culture. And it still is. Culture is just something we don't understand because we do not apply enough studying to it deeply to understand it. So to keep from being lumped in with the confusion, I started saying Njia 2, our way. So this is how I like to explain it so we can kind of grasp what's going on and who we are and where we are and what we should be. So Njia 2 translates into our way. By our way is meant the distinct and unique way African people conceive, perceive, process, understand, and relate to physical and metaphysical reality. How we interface with the social, natural, and spirit world. How we think, speak, and be is Njia 2. How we walk and how we talk is Njia 2. How we eat and how we dress is Njia 2. How we interact with and take care of one another is Njia 2. Our relationship with the cosmos is Njia 2. Essentially, our way refers to how we do what we do. Our way distinguishes us from the cultural orientations of other races. We are who we are because of our way. Njia 2 defines us and shapes us into who we are. This is the key. This is the key right here. We have a way, a worldview that is distinctively and uniquely African. And because of that, we are uniquely and distinctively unlike any other people that's walking and standing on this planet. And our task, to a great extent, is to come to understand that way to the best of our ability. And as we come to understand what it means to be African, we must in turn act in like manner. We must act to the degree that we understand who we are. That's in GAA2, our way. Our way. We look at the world totally different. You know, we think about death totally different. We think about life totally different. For us, we're life-affirming people. A child-centered society. In most African languages, you can't even translate some of the terms that we use in these European languages. Jail, old folks home, orphanage, stuff like that, because we never thought about those types of things. We never thought that we would throw children away or leave children or abandon children, because children for us were in fact an ancestor returning to us. So we was joyful. We was happy when we got the news that a sister was pregnant. So we didn't think about, put a child away. That wasn't us. We didn't think about putting our elders in separate places away from community, because we knew the importance of community. And we knew that the elders should be in close proximity with the children to transmit the culture, the values, the traditions, the rituals, the ways of being, like the mythology, the folklore, the folktale. Those things were transmitted largely by the elders. That's what this is all about. So we didn't think of that, So oftentimes, we struggle because we're always trying to find an African equivalent for European concepts. No, some of that stuff them Europeans came up with, it's just theirs. We don't have to try to find an African equivalent, because every time we do that, we make a mistake. We lose parts of ourselves. Like the argument, I like to use this argument, were African people monotheistic or polytheistic? That's us once again trying to find, African equivalents for European concepts. So what we do is we argue that African people were monotheistic. We argue for that. We'll yell, struggle, and fight. Man, we was monotheistic, man. The Kemites was monotheistic. The Yoruba people and the Khan people, man, the Igbo people, man, they was monotheistic. We'll argue, are you up and down, that they was monotheistic? Reason being, because the Europeans created both concepts, monotheism and polytheism. And then the Europeans took it upon themselves to assign one as being greater than the other. They said that monotheism would be greater than polytheism. And so they said that, and then they pushed monotheism. So because Europeans say monotheism is the greater of the two, we go out our way to try to prove that we're monotheistic, when in reality, African people wasn't thinking about monotheism or polytheism. We just had our unique way of thinking about our relationship to what we may call the supreme divinity. We don't have to try to make sure that what we think and how we conceived and related to the supreme divinity have to fit into one of their categories. That's the mistake that we're making. That's the big mistake. And we're making this mistake largely because we don't understand NGAA2. We don't understand that we have a unique way that's separate from them. In fact, they're unlike us. That's a better way of terming it. They are unlike us. We stood here first on the planet. So if anything that need to be compared to anything, then the comparison should be to us. And in fact, they can't even begin to compare to us. But we make the mistake when we go out our way trying to find African equivalents for European terms. No, we don't have to do that. That's a mistake. And another mistake we make when we say that, God, Allah, Jehovah, Neter, Nyame, Chukwu. We say things like, well, they all mean God. Listen to them. We say they all mean God. It's just different languages. We say it that way. We say they all mean God. It's just different languages. How can they all mean God and God came after all the rest of them? You know, God is relatively new in the scene. Like how could Netter means God, and Netter existed thousands of years before God was even thought about. So how can you say that? Right? But that's once again, that's us. That's us attempting to find, you know, African equivalents for European terms and European words. Let them have their terms and their words. Go find your own. That's the work that we need to do. Return to your source, as Amilcar Cabral would say. Return to your source. Amilcar Cabral was sharp. Brother was sharp out of Guinea, revolutionary. And I'm going to paraphrase something that he said. This is a paraphrase. He said that a people could only be oppressed to the degree that they accept the cultural domination of the invading force or the invading people. You could only be oppressed to the degree that you accept their culture. The moment you reject their culture in an effort to return to your culture is the moment you start the process to your freedom. Because at the end of the day, like Dr. Check and the Joke said, this whole big thing is nothing but cultural aggression. It's a cultural aggression to suppress your culture, to make you think incorrectly and wrong about your own culture. That's what this is about. And our task is go get our stuff, man. Go get our stuff. And sometimes going to get our stuff does require that we connect with a proper educator, a Baba, a Mama, a Saber, a Iya, a Babalawo, you know what I'm saying, a Jegna, and an Mwalimu. We got to connect, man. We got to connect with those who know the way, who can assist us in finding the way, because it's murky. It's real murky, and you can spend years and years and years, man, on a murky path that's not leading you back to your stuff. And we need to cut the time down. We don't got time to be running around in all this murkiness, man, going in all the wrong places. We need to get on a path, man, that's going to expedite us back to Africa. You know, that's what this is about. A path that's going to expedite us back to Africa. And sometimes you got to connect with somebody that can help you to do that. You know, it's nothing wrong with that. You're not wrong for that. You're not less than because you do that. That's our way. We've always had, you know, educators to work with us as an African people. That's a part of our tradition. We've always had that. Initiation processes. We've always had that. Rights processes that allow apprenticeships. We've always had processes where we was able to be instructed and led and educated and developed by someone else who had wisdom and experience in a particular area to maximize our growth and development in that particular area. We've always had that. That's who we are. That's a part of our way. But we want to get back there. But that's what I wanted to share that from NGA 2 from this book here. So it goes on and says, NGA 2 sets us apart from all other people, thereby giving us our personal and collective identity. NGA 2 is our worldview. It is the pivot from which we operate and the center upon which we stand to look out into the world. NGA 2 is how we access the world, how we measure the world, how we gauge the world, how we respond to the world, and how we navigate the world. How we interact with other cultural groups is NGA 2. NGA 2 is our collective thought and behavior, which is not a negation of individuality. NGA 2 does not mean carbon copy or drones. Essentially, NGA 2 means African thought and behavior. The principles by which they are governed originates from the same mode of thought, reasoning process, and logic system. African thought and behavior follow the same uniform pattern and adheres to the same structural formation. Whether Igbo, Yoruba, Akan, Hosa, Shona, Dogon, etc., Africans in America, African thought and behavior have a singular point of origin. African thought and behavior derives from an African asili, This means our mode of thought and behavior, our beingness, are different from other cultural groups. Different from other cultural groups. Different. And our difference is a mark of our beauty. Our difference is an expression of our spirit. Our difference is our soul force. Our difference is our relationship and connection to the rhythm and the dynamism within nature. That makes us who we are. We must celebrate that, appreciate that, and affirm that on a daily basis. We must not apologize for it, and we must not hide that. We must uphold that and utilize that as a sense and a source of power. See, I added that in there for a reason, because oftentimes we can over celebrate incorrectly. See, African celebration is always purposeful, and it becomes a sense and a source of power that enables us to tap into the spirit realm and to connect with the deities and the ancestors, to draw from that, to be stronger, to do the things that need to be done. The mighty works that we've done as a people, we've never done solely by ourselves. There is no Haitian revolution with Bookman, Fatima, and Jacques Dessalines and Toussaint. There's none of that without African spiritness. None of that happening down there without that spirit, that African spirit. It's very important. There is no Zulu nation, Zulu empire that's beaten and running up against the British Army without the spirit. Go read and study. They'll talk about how the spirit people amongst the Zulu were on the battlefield. African spirit beings and spirit people, divine people, have always took part. You know what I'm saying? In any intrusion. We don't study spirituality to run from intrusions. We don't have no fear of you. We know who we are. So our people always stood on the battlefield, and it enabled us. There is no Ya Asantewa, without African spiritness. None of that is happening without that. So to get back to my point, it's very important that we know who we are, so we can utilize the forces. Those forces are around us, and those forces are within us. But it's very important that we ritualize ourselves and our beings, so we are able to tap into and draw from those forces. That's what this is all about. Let's go here. Let's look at Nomo. Let's look at Nomo real quick. I'm going to the part that deals with remembrance. It's very important that we remember. Page 41, if you out there. Page 41, remembrance. And once again, Nomo, the unified field of African spirituality. If you don't have this book, I suggest that you get it. Get a copy. Get a copy of both of those books. But so our spirit quest is one of remembrance. Entry into the material world causes spiritual amnesia. The more we acclimate into the material world, the less we remember about our original spirit abode and our initial spirit state of existence. Our journey through the material world, with all of our trials and tribulations, is an act of remembrance. We are charged with the task of remembering why we came to the material world, to remember our destiny. Not destiny in the sense of predestination, but destiny in the sense of spiritual purpose, our true path. Remembrance is a spiritual awakening process. Through the act of remembrance, we awaken to the reality of our true nature. We begin to remember who we are historically, ancestrally, and spiritually. We eventually begin to remember our initial and original state of being, which is spirit and divine. The realization of which grants us access to our spiritual power. Spiritual power grants us access to our spiritual power. It's very important. Our spiritual power derives from the core of our being, which is our spirit source. The core of who we are is spirit. And it's therein that the power of spirit is accessed. And that power of spirit is we find tenacity there. We find perseverance there. We find resiliency there. We find, determination that can't be crushed there. Harriet Tubman act was an act of spirit. Nat Turner was an action of spirit. Jack Dessalines was an act of spirit. Denmark Vesey was an act of spirit. That's what Henry Beard, who ran about 5 times, that was an act of spirit. Martin Delaney, it was an act of spirit. Henry Highland Garnett, who was out on a ship one day, a young man about the age of 17 or 18, he comes home in New York and he finds out that some Europeans from down south had knocked on his door, asking about his father because his father had ran from the plantations. His father, tricked him as usual. Henry finds out, and the first thing he do is grab a weapon and goes looking for these Europeans, right? That's an act of spirit, man. It's an act of spirit. That's who we are. And we have to pull that back into all that we do. We have to pull that spirit back into all that we do and allow that spirit to push us beyond where we think we cannot go. Where we think we cannot go, what we think we cannot do. We gotta use that spirit to get these things done. One of our greatest flaws today is our inability to develop economic plans that are collective, communal, and centered on development of us as a mass population. We only know capitalism and exploitation. I beg to differ. on that one. Like I say, now, I think that a lot of people do know capitalism and exploitation, which I think is destructive. But there are Black people who are building these things the way that you describe them here. They may not be popular amongst a lot of Black people, and they may not necessarily be on a national level at this state, but they are working. They are working. We've always done it. With the mutual aid societies, we've built cooperatives for the last 200 something years, give or take 250 years, 270 years. I understand the sentiment behind what you're saying. I'm clear about the sentiment, but I think that the statements got to be qualified. I think the statements got to be qualified in the sense that a great deal of us don't understand that, but they shouldn't be our focus. Those who don't understand it shouldn't be our focus. The focus should be those who do understand. And I think that our task should be to try to link up and find out the ones who do understand. And then what we each understand, we bring that to the table. So if in this observation that you make, you realize that there's a weakness and there's a flaw in terms of our ability to build these types of systems, and within that observation, I'm quite sure you have some ideas or a concept or a framework of how things should look and can look, then that's what you bring to the table and that's what you bring to the discussion. And we work from there. We work it from there because we're not going to be able to change everybody's mind. So yeah, most of us are intoxicated with capitalism and we love exploitation. That's true. I would never argue against that. That is true. We do. But there are some of us that understand what you're talking about as well. And I believe that if we spend more time looking for those individuals and attempting to connect with those individuals, we stand a greater chance at jump-starting, this new movement, this new movement that has to happen, that must happen, But like I say, I understand the sentiments and I do agree that we are extremely intoxicated with capitalism. You know what I'm saying? It erodes everything it touches. The breakdown of the family, the backwardness of Black children is linked to capitalism. The over sexualization of the Black man and the Black woman is capitalism. So I do agree. You know what I'm saying? Most of our people's fascination, you see what I'm saying, with artificial things and fake things, it's capitalism. You know what I'm saying? The microwave mentality that many of us have, it's capitalism. So yes, I do agree. Capitalism is as a system, as an economic political system, as a social system, it's no good for us, for Black people, no good at all. And I would never advocate for it. I know that currently I live under it, but I would never advocate for it. I think that what you are, leaning towards in terms of collective, communal, and Senate, I tend to lean that way. So I do agree with that. All day long, my brother. I'm looking forward to hearing some of your economic ideas, man, at the National Race First Convention in September 2025, man. So get ready. Get ready, man. Get yourself ready, man, to make this travel here to Baltimore, so you can be a part of this historic moment. It's going down in history. It's going to be a space, a place, and a time to be remembered. I'm not expecting thousands of people to show up. I'm expecting the right people to show up, so the right level and quality of work can get done. That's what this is all about. And yes, I know you have a lot to add to that conversation. A lot to add to that conversation. We have to build, but part of building is and let me say this also. Our situation is multi-layered, and it's going to take a multi-layered approach, because I'm quite sure your observation is correct, and I'm quite sure another person can make another observation surrounding something that'll be correct. And I think we have to look at this situation, as complex as it is, and figure out ways to make all these observations that to a great extent are correct observations. How do we sync them all together? And that's what scientific Pan-Africanism is about. So when we talk about ideology, wait till I drop this book this year, Scientific Pan-Africanism, an ideology of liberation. Right? It gets into all of what you're talking about. It gets into that. I gets into the economic system. I gets into the political system. I gets into the social dynamics of who we are and how we should be. Scientific Pan-Africanism, it lays it out. When I speak about how we should be connecting up and finding ways to link, we will be there with plans in hand. My man, I appreciate that. Lovely. But yes, so Scientific Pan-Africanism, an ideology of liberation is coming. Look forward. December 2024. Within the next couple of weeks, I'm going to start. I plan to start doing pre-orders for the book, so you can get the book on time. And starting in January 2025, hopefully, if things go the way that I'm laying it out, I'll be doing a book tour on the book, and I want to do. And I plan to do a study course on the book as well, because it's one of those books that's going to require us to study it together, so we can understand the whole idea and the whole concept behind Scientific Pan-Africanism. I deal with the issue of class in Scientific Pan-Africanism. I deal with the issue of limitations, because oftentimes people like to speak about Pan-Africanism being limited. So I deal with that. I crush it. There's nothing limited about Black internationalism. It's only limited if you believe that internationalism must include other people. So if you believe that internationalism must include other people, then yes, you're going to think that Pan-Africanism is limited. And once again, that's you trying to make everything fit European definitions. I don't. Because I don't see Europeans as being no type of individual who have any type of authority over Black thought. They have no authority over Black thought. But for those who don't understand, so yes, I deal with the Pan-Africanism being limited. No, Black internationalism is real. And that's what Pan-Africanism is all about. Black internationalism, about recognizing and seeing us globally and striving to unify us globally. Right? But there's a whole lot that goes into that. But the book deals with that. I deal with class. I'm currently concluding the part that deals with sexism, because oftentimes people like to talk about the fact that Pan-Africanism, overemphasize Black men. They bring that up a lot. And to a degree, there is some validity there, but that validity is only to the degree that how I put it in the book. I says that I believe it's only relevant to the degree that you have what I like to call social, historical, revisionist, and cultural reductionist and internalized racist notions, reactionary scholars. When reactionary scholars assume the responsibility of writing about Pan-Africanism, they tend to leave the Black women out very intentionally. And then you have some genuine Pan-Africanists who just don't have the knowledge to identify and recognize the Black woman's role in Pan-Africanism. So I address that. And then I clear up, like at the very beginning, like everyone like to say, which is true, Henry Sylvester Williams' role in Pan-Africanism, it's true. He was at the very beginning, he played a part in giving us Pan-Africanism as a political term and a concept. However, what's not mentioned what I mentioned in the book is this: Alice Alexander Kinloch. She was there also in 1897. And in fact, Alice Alexander Kinloch was Henry Sylvester Williams' inspiration to found the organization known as the African Association, which she was a part of. And she was from South Africa. So if we argue that Henry Sylvester Williams is the father of Pan-Africanism, logically she was at the beginning. We can argue she was the mother. Something to think about. But if I mention it, you can also go back and find it. I don't mention anything that you can't go do the research and verify for yourself. I've learned 25 years ago never to do that. So if Baba Imhotep is talking about, you want to debate the class issue. You want to debate the class issue, my brother. I'm not arguing against class, see? And that's the catch once again, right? We only understand class from how Europeans talk about class. I'm not arguing. I'm not saying class doesn't exist. I'm clear about class. What I'm saying is this. I'm saying that when the class framework that's currently pushed and articulated does not include us conceptually, even though we wrongly think it does and we attempt to force ourselves into it, I'm saying it doesn't include us. I'm saying there's a clear distinction conceptually what's meant by the upper class for upper class white people and Black people. I don't care how much money the Black person has. They are never included conceptually and socially in that class. That's what I'm arguing. Now, I know within Black people, we have divisions. I'm clear about that. But I'm saying within the American framework, the Black political body of people, we are more a racial caste in this construct than a social class. That's what I'm arguing. I'm not saying class doesn't exist. See, for Bob Imhotep, my whole thinking revolves around how they have constructed things, because therein lies the problem. When we try to argue our issue from their frameworks, we have to create and develop our own frameworks that speaks to the truth and the reality of our situation as it is. And when we do that, we can get free. So folks want to be amongst the class of rich and wealth. So I guess I agree with that, because I'm not arguing. I'm not asserting that at all. So I would say I agree with that. That's not mine. That's not my position. I'm on all forms of media, audios and videos where I'm telling you at the end of the day, and I'll state it here tonight. I do not have any aspirations to be rich. And what I mean is this, I'm not advocating for poverty. I don't think we should be poor. I don't think we should be without. I don't think we should be doing bad. I don't believe any of that. But I'm saying that money have never been a motivation for me. So that's what I'm saying. So money does not motivate me, does not move me to do what I do. So that doesn't apply to me, nor does it apply to anybody that's, that's going to spend a significant amount of time inside the PLM framework. Now, you may come into PLM thinking that way, but as you get into the ideology of PLM, in time, you will begin to share that. We don't think that. That's not what we advocate. That's not what we promote. That's not what we're chasing. Now, I believe that the community should be doing well for itself. I believe the community should be in a position to take care of itself, to look out for itself, to look out for one another. I believe that, and I advocate for that. But I am not chasing to be a part of none of what these Europeans have created. That's not me. That's not what I'm thinking. That's not what I'm about. Now, I'm not going to spend a significant amount of time of trying to, critique the people who are doing that either. I know who they are. I point them out, but at the same time, I present the correct way of being. So I give people a correct way of moving and let them choose for themselves. They're going to either choose to go into capitalism and burn and die, or they're going to choose to not be inside capitalism and develop another way where they can flourish, as a human being and prosper as a person, as a spirit. That's the work that I do. That's what I promote. That's what I'm striving to bring forth. So we always going to have people who are going to try to be a part of, the folk that's destroying us. We're never going to escape that. We're not going to escape that. So I agree with this last statement. You and I, on this last statement, we see eye to eye. We see eye to eye. So I have 7 minutes beyond my time. And that's only because my brother Black, meaning Africa, always keep me thinking on my toes. So that's how I got past my 7 minutes. But I appreciate it. I enjoy it. I'm glad that we had some of the great people who spent some time with us here tonight. Brother Craig was here, Black meaning Black. I see Flavor Brothers popped on just now, which is good. Zenzi was on. As always, I appreciate you guys, man. Make sure you like this video, like it up, share it. If you have not subscribed, please subscribe. This is the work, man. We're going to come in, we're going to have these conversations. And having said that, as always, stay tuned for our next episode here at the School of Urban Philosophy, where we are always straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point, where information is used to move Black people forward. And on that note, Abibif Hodie, race first. See you next Thursday.